Hi, I'm Scott Hammond with writtenplan.com, and today I want to talk about some of the underlying reasons why we should learn personal productivity, focus, and organization. Socrates said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." Let me tell you a story about a guy named Gene. Gene was a multimillionaire in Nashville, Tennessee. He owned a giant accounting firm. He was called to the doctor's office one day for a routine exam and did that, came back, was working on something, got a phone call. "Hi, Gene, this is Dr. Smith. Come on back, we want to see you." He didn't want to do that, but he knew it was important. He came back and found out that he actually had 4 months to live. He had a metastasized cancer. He had a cancer that was growing rapidly, and he was going to perish. And what happened was, Gene learned something really wonderful in that last 120 days. First of all, he wrote a book, and he learned a lot about life, how to live life more vividly, more on purpose. And he learned a key lesson: to slow down and to really examine who he was and examine life. And he learned to get the best out of life, not the most out of life. And those last 120 days were his most compelling days of Gene's life. He said they were the best days, and he got more out of those days than any others. So a survey was done by a guy named Dick Leader. He's the author of Power of Purpose. And what they did is they interviewed senior citizens in their 70s and 80s, and they learned 3 things. Number 1 is they would see the big picture. My question for you and I, can we see the big picture? What is your big picture? What does clarity look like for you? Do you have clarity? Are you keeping the main thing the main thing? What's important to you? Number 2, they would be more courageous. Are we living courageously? Do we have courageous conversations? Are we courageous about the things that we attempt to do and accomplish? And then lastly, they said they would make a difference. 2 people that made a difference in my life were my father, Bob, and my friend Dan Gunderson. Dan died at 49 years old, and I was informed by my wife one afternoon, and I couldn't believe it. It cut me hard, and I had to stop and ask myself, what's important to me? What is greatness? And what is a life well lived? And I immediately thought about my dad, Bob, who died about 5 years ago. And here's what he taught us. Even though you could put all of his possessions in a Chevy, he still left us with incredible riches: a love for God, a love for people, and a love for nature. So it had nothing to do with stuff. It had to do with an investment. It had to do with relationship. And it had to do with kindness and being in the moment with people that you love. Much of the same takeaway that these seniors in the study had. And I'll end it with a story. We were at my friend Dan at his memorial, and a little girl came up to the front to say a few words about Dan, and she said, "He was my next door daddy," and began to weep openly. And my question for you today is, to whom will you be the next door daddy or the next door mommy? Who will you reach out to just because, to share your life, to share your experience, to share your love, and to pour into another life because you're kind, because you love, because you care? That was my takeaway. And I would encourage you to have those relationships with people, because it's really what it's all about. Scott Hammond with writtenplan.com. Have a productive day.